Julie, welcome to the Retail Horror Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We've had this rescheduled a few times, which one of the last times I lost. I'm just going to tell a story because I can't believe how insane it was. I lost internet service as well as Zoom had gone down, and I didn't know till my 1 o'clock appointment, and we were a 3 o'clock scheduled interview. And I'm like panicking, trying to send you emails and contact you without internet service. And my phone, for whatever reason, was not allowing me to send. So I had to get in my car, drive to Starbucks down the hill, log into there. And I literally got you 1 minute before we were supposed to start recording. Yeah. I just was horrified thinking you were going to get on and I wasn't there, and thinking that I just ghosted you. So here we are for the second time, and thank you so much for being here.
Of course. This is my pleasure. I've been following you for a while, so this is fun.
Well, thank you.
Finally see you in person.
Introduce yourself to everyone and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
My name is Julie Schwarz. I am currently living in Long Beach, California. I was born in the East Coast. I'm living here now. I own a vintage store called the Mom Up Shop, and it benefits my nonprofit called Project WomanGood, where we help people get out of abusive relationships. And we stay out. So that's how I've kind of managed to thrift for a living, honestly.
I mean, I love everything about what you're doing, and I can't wait to get into how that started. You, in your bio, it said you've spent 30 years in retail and the service industry. Give us a little background on your 30 years.
Oh, so I started out, I'm from Washington, D.C., in the city, and I was a tour guide on little buses that go all around the mall.
Fun.
So it was a lot of fun. I had to learn a lot of history, but I also had to learn how to address people, and kind of help them figure out what they needed if they didn't speak English. And I did it through downtown D.C. as well as Arlington Cemetery.
Wow.
So I learned a lot about military, about cemeteries in general, about, United States history, DC history, all these different levels. So that was one of my most favorite jobs. I did that right out of high school.
Wow.
I did it for 2 years off and on. And we were there. I was there for Clinton's inauguration.
Oh, how amazing to be involved in that.
It was cool. So, but then I moved to Boston and I got into restaurants, started working at restaurants on Commonwealth Ave. And I stayed in the Back Bay area. I worked at, a fish restaurant, and then I went to a Tex-Mex restaurant that was in Copley Square, and then I started working at Morton's of Chicago in Boston, and that kind of took over my life because I was waiting tables, and I was kind of helping out with the private room, so I was doing bartending there, and I was also going to school, and so I literally had no life. Just worked and went to school and slept.
I think that retail service, because I came out of the retail industry, out of restaurant industry, because I would go back and forth between, my wet seal jobs and whatnot. But I think working in restaurants is some of the best customer service training you can get, because you are multitasking on the highest level and trying to please people when there are things that are out of your control, something being late, you drop something. I dropped so much stuff. I was in a Mexican restaurant and I had to use those giant trays that had 20 margaritas on it. And if I went around the corner too fast, the whole thing. And it got to the point so much stuff dropped that automatically the team were like, "Where's Michelle?" I'm like, okay. But it was such a great experience, and I can't imagine Morton's being just that's such a high-end service of taking care of people. I can imagine the training
took, I want to say, about a month.
Wow.
To the point where this was in the early 90s. So they actually gave me a loan to pay my rent because I was training for so long.
Wow. That's
I
amazing.
don't know that they do that anymore, but that was one of their programs. We had health insurance, and the longer you were there, the less you paid. But yeah, the service, I mean, the training itself was really meticulous. They had, the type of pens you had to use to write on your tickets, your order tickets. I mean, how you addressed the guests, who you poured wine for first, who you took the order from first, even how your uniform presented. If you had like a little bit of dirt on your shirt, you'd run back and change it. And just going out of your way. I mean, it's not really out of your way, it's your job. So the feeling of making sure everyone feels that you care about them specifically is what makes the most difference, I think, in how people feel about whatever interaction you have with them, but also about the space in general.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I really loved, is really elevating my service experience in a way that, I mean, it still resonates. I think service, customer service is one of the most important parts of any element, regardless of the price point of the restaurant, the store, anything. If you have a nice person who helps you out, you're more likely to go back there even if you didn't really, even if you don't like the food, even if you don't like the clothing or like the price point, you go anyway. So I think that that's kind of where I discovered that customer service sways people more so than anything else.
Especially when tips are involved. So I got really good at giving free desserts. I'm so sorry this was late. I brought you a free dessert, and it's like, damn, that always saved the day.
I was like that with wine. I'd bring out their glass of wine before they realized they wanted another one.
Ah, I love that.
Did you want another one? Yes, here. So just kind of feeling like I was reading their minds, but really I could gauge their drinking speed by.
Now, was this Morton's in Washington or in Chicago?
I was actually a hostess at Morton's in Washington, and then I transferred to Morton's in Boston.
Okay. What's the craziest story that because I always love hearing crazy stories about restaurants.
Oh, I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think. A lot of times people would try and steal knives. They have those signature knives with the.
Oh, yes.
And so if they did, people would try to push the knives down because they would put them in their pockets, right? So you'd smash the knife down so it ripped the pocket.
My craziest story is I loved flan, and I was in a Mexican restaurant, and anytime the team could not find me, they would go into the walk-in cooler and I would be in there inhaling flan. I don't know if I should be saying that now, but I'm like,
I feel it. Yeah. We had someone who said he was Aretha Franklin's son and that he wanted to come in and order for her before she got there. Oh. And then he sat down and ate and then took off, and turned out, no, it's not him.
People are like so crazy. So when did you enter the retail sector?
I moved from Boston, I moved to California. And then I actually worked at Anthropologie in Santa Monica on the promenade.
Okay, so what year were you there? Because I was there I was 27, so I'm 59 now. So that was a long time ago. But what year were you there, and what managers were there?
2012.
Okay.
Right when I started.
Was Jen Wilhelm a manager there? Or was she higher up?
I don't remember. Some people I remember, we had Savitri had taken over.
Okay, I remember Savitri's name. Enoch was still there because Enoch is still there now. I'm not kidding you. He's still there.
That is crazy because Enoch is the reason I applied. He'd seen that I was shopping there a lot, and he said, "We're hiring for seasonal people. Why don't you come and apply?"
I will say this, much like restaurants, Anthropologie, it was like almost like a family, like Christine Street that, you must have worked with Christine. She has Chocolate and Steel now. I'm still very good friends with her. Elaine Strawbridge, she was by then a DM. But Enoch, like I just rolled into that Anthro God, it was before I moved. So it was probably like 3 years ago. And Enoch, I couldn't believe Enoch was still there. And I also couldn't believe he recognized me right away. I'm like, holy shit. Like,
He's got a mind of steel. It's crazy. It's
the best
crazy.
story I have for him is he was like this like shoplifting sleuth, and he was always at the front. He was either at the register or he was the greeter, and he had like security tags that were on clothing in his pockets. And if he thought someone had stolen, or he saw them, I shouldn't say thought, if he had seen them steal, because you can't really say anything, he would casually walk by and toss one into like usually it was a baby carriage. Like a lot of people, that's the easiest way to steal. And he would toss one in, and he'd be like, bye, thank you so much. And they'd leave, and the alarm would go off, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, can you come back? And damned if he didn't. I was like, I don't think that's legal, but it was brilliant. And it was so
He scoped him out. Definitely. Definitely. I had a good crew there. I had, Casey Oyama was there for a really long time.
I know.
Christine, who else? Lisa. I forget her name. This was all back of house people.
What was your role at Anthro?
I, was a sales associate, but for me, I loved watching the people who, when they started to work, and then the sort of like cocoon they came out of, and like these women came in kind of like drab, not even mousy, but just like not quite sure of what they could wear of their body. And then, within a month, they're wearing whatever they want. They're doing their hair, they're doing their nails, they're doing, it was just such a metamorphosis to watch so many of these women come through and just be in such a positive work environment with a lot of women, who just, we wore the clothes and we just did, we embraced the anthro look, I would say. So I that's what I really love the most, is seeing the change that people would have, that women would have when they started working versus who they are now. And they got emboldened to do a lot of different things. Yeah.
I will say I still say this, that there's the reason why I do what I do is all because of anthropology. And, it's just it's such a phenomenal training place for anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I loved it. And I had a friend point out, she's like, you always talk about that job at anthropology. I'm like, because it was so fun and it didn't feel like work sometimes. Yep. And then even I love to be the greeter at the front because I could tell people all about the building, but they always asked about the building. They always ask about like, well, where's the stuff that fits me? Nothing here fits me. So then I got to point out like, no, we have a lot of plus size items upstairs, or we had a huge petite section that was really cool to watch, that kind of come into being. And I remember, so the store itself used to be a drugstore, and we had an older gentleman. Yeah. We had an older gentleman come in and say, I used to work at the drugstore that was here. He was a soda jerk.
Wow. So what was the second floor then of that building?
I don't know. I mean, it could be offices or anything. I don't know.
I had no idea. I know it was old, but it was like such a great building. That mezzanine gave me full stress, I swear to God, because that was still considered merchandisable space that we had. And it was such an odd space because it was this weird transition of the first floor and all the home and garden and whatnot. The mezzanine was usually its own little shop unto itself, and then you went upstairs to the rest of the apparel and intimates and bedding and the fitting rooms. But
that's tough though, that mezzanine, because sometimes people don't even notice that there's stuff there.
No, and it's so
eye-catching.
But I will say the best thing about that mezzanine was being able, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, is like when you're setting your floor, it's like to be able to set your floor, stand back up, especially to have the advantage of sitting up on the mezzanine and watch how people walk the store, because that's where I learned floor setting. And it's like, it's very easy for anybody to be in their store and to take a look and watch where people walk, because honestly, like you will see where someone's cruising through and you see them do a direct pivot And it's like there's still merchandise back there. So it's like, what is
Right.
that? Why is that space such a weird dead space? And all it takes is a couple little tweaks of tables. But we could always see that from the mezzanine. I'll never forget that. And I still do that, is stand back and watch people how they walk through the store because of that experience.
I never thought to do that,
It's
even
one of
with my
the
store. But I mean,
merchandisers
in
we
general, I
had.
just like to watch people there.
Yeah, we
But
had two as merchandisers. And even as a store owner, it's like it's always really interesting to do that, is to like watch how I've got a store right now in Calabasas that I'm working with. I'm like, just take a look, and like, because we're trying to figure out where to put something that's like not going to be a high trafficked item, but something that needs a space that's big enough to be able. So it's like, take a look at how your floor works and where it's dead. And then that's where we end up putting it, because it's something that requires someone to be walking them over. So it's not like a high traffic item.
That makes sense.
So
I remember coming
sorry.
to Anthropologie and watching, I want to say it was like the corporate merchandising department there too, redoing the entire store.
Those
right? And what's that?
Those are the most stressful meetings you will ever have in your entire career.
I can only imagine. But it was like full on. You could hear the drills, from taking stuff down. They were putting up huge drapery. Stuff was being moved by stacks, and moved over. So it was, for me, that was the best part of watching people in the store. And I was like, I just want to be a part of this, watching them like transform it, because people always say, oh, I love that store. And it's never necessarily what they buy, but how they feel when they're in there.
It's the big, when they brought in everyone from corporate, was always so cool to see how it, within a few days, because usually the workshops were like a week long, and to watch how the store was turned over, from everything from the big scale display all the way to the windows and all the details. Like the windows were always the mind-blowing one, because the display coordinators were separate from us.
Right.
But it ran in the same timeline as us in the merchandising. But to watch them with all those, like, because I couldn't do that kind of detail work. Like merchandisers are usually ADD, and it's all about like getting it done and being done by the end of the day. Display coordinators, it is a long process.
Can't like folding 10,000 little like origami birds, or like, painting a piece of cardboard this big with like a swirl.
That's where I check out. That's where my ADD kicks in.
I couldn't. But it's also amazing that this store has such a huge staff behind it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was very much like I think for a lot of people that came out of Anthropologie, I think it's like probably the best education you'll have in retail is definitely working at that brand.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you left Anthro, where did you go from there?
When I left Anthro, I actually, I had been managing farmers markets in San Diego. So when I went to Anthro, I went there because it was in proximity to the Santa Monica Farmers Market. Mm-hmm. It was like a block away. So when I left Anthropologie, I actually took on the farmers markets here in Long Beach, and I ran 5 farmers markets, and that ended up being, again, a huge learning curve, because while I had managed before, I hadn't managed all of these markets. And, I floundered a little bit, because there were so many tasks that I didn't like to do. Paperwork, not a fan, these kind of things. But I'm always amazed at the amount of information that farmers market managers have to know, because we have to know state law, city law, California, like LA County law has all these different laws within it, as well as the retail laws, and then farming laws, and then environmental laws. We have to know all of that. And look at a booth and say, no, you can't have that. Make sure this is, do you have this sign that has all the information about your farm? So that was a really, I'm always amazed at how much information you have to have, as well as like WIC, EBT, any sort of like groups coming in. It's just, you're on it all the time.
What is the training for that?
That's almost all on the job. Almost all of it. There's no, yeah, absolutely. And I lasted longer than I could have, because I was really, really good at being at the front of the market.
Mm.
Setting up the booth, talking to people, good morning to everybody, making sure that the vendors were checked in and felt good about their day, and just talking to everybody, getting getting an idea as to what people were selling, how they ended up getting, I wanted a backstory on everyone. So, this advisory committee was like, we don't know what to do with you, but I got to tell you, every person we talk to says you are the absolute best at what you do. Because I just love that interaction, that it's almost like it's the same in the restaurant industry. It's like those tiny pieces of interaction that sort of make you feel strong almost. So that's what I really love the most, was just talking to people, getting out there, being part of this thing that people are like, wow, how did you get this job? Who do you know in order to get this? And, I just applied, but I'm still attracted to farmers markets. I really love the atmosphere and the smell, and you see they're the same people at the farmers markets. They're like 20 Enochs at these farmers markets. So it's everywhere I go, I find one.
Farmers markets are my happy place. I will say that. A lot of it's because it's visual, and because I'm in the gift industry, and I see all the gifts, but in farmers markets, much like grocery stores, it's not in my industry. So I love so much of perusing the aisles and all the fresh vegetables. And, it is still very much my happy place.
Definitely. Yeah. Me too. I go as many times as I can. And it's really not to shop. It's just to kind of see the people and see what they have, and just be around the atmosphere, which is, that interaction is what I crave for so long. So that's why I ended up getting my own store, because I just wanted to talk to people again.
So tell us how that became, but also I really want to know how you started this nonprofit, because that's a large group of people that are affected by domestic violence, and you to have a store and a nonprofit that goes back to that. Tell us the story about how, because there's got to be a story behind that.
Oh yeah. So I got out of my abusive relationship in 2016 here in Long Beach, and I had no car, I had no driver's license, and I had toddlers. So I had to do everything on the bus, and I had to take them with me, because I really didn't have childcare worked out, none of these things. I was literally doing it blind.
Wow.
And I had to do custody court, restraining orders, all this stuff. And it was just the most daunting thing ever. And my thing is that English is my first language, and I have a bachelor's degree, right? So technically I'm who can navigate this, right? In theory. And this felt almost impossible. So I can't imagine anyone who doesn't, who English is not their first language, or they don't have a formal education, trying to navigate any of this. You're shut down at the start. You got to fill this out correctly. You got to, make sure your stamps are right. You have to go in knowing all this information. And we had to go to a class, a court-ordered class. All the survivors had to go to this court-ordered class in Long Beach, and we had to go every week. We were locked out if we were late. It felt like a penalty, right? And we had to do this in order for our court case to go through. But what I found was the most information, the most connections I made were when the the person running the meetings left the group, and it was just us talking. And, the barriers come down. You don't sugarcoat anything. You're talking about what you need, how you're going to do it. Can someone help me? Does anyone have suggestions? And that really struck me as really important to see that we were the ones who were helping each other most. We had this court-ordered class. We had all this other, obligations that we had to do, but we really were the ones who needed to connect with each other, because it's very hard. It's isolating. It's stressful. It's exhausting. And, you feel alone a lot of the time. So with that, I had this in my mind that I wanted to figure out a way to make this process not necessarily easier, but allow people to connect earlier on so they don't feel like they're alone and they're more empowered. Which is how I got my idea to have a storefront with a safe room in the back. So the safe room would essentially have, it'd be an empty, a private space where you can be on your phone without being monitored, your computer, same thing, without being monitored, have lockers where you can store your, all the papers that you need to start over, essentially, birth certificate, passport, social security card, all these items that you need to sign a lease to move on. You want to start putting those in the lockers. And then also having the store itself be a training area for people who have not been in the workplace, are not the breadwinners, just to be able to give them a little bit of experience and put that on their resume. And then the store itself can be a mailing address if you don't want your legal items to go to your house. Sometimes banks will need a physical address rather than a PO box in order to start a bank account on your own. So I just wanted to incorporate all of this, and then even use that space for trauma support groups, resume classes, credit repair classes, or credit repair workshops. Just ways to help us all connect with each other and then create exit plans. So in 3 months, I can be out. In 6 months, I can be out. So it doesn't feel like you're doing it all at once. And you also are able to build up a community of people who can help you. Yeah. And I think that was the most important part for me, is just like creating an atmosphere where people feel like they don't have to hide what they're going through. And then you can find people who can help you. Just connecting those resources, like saying, like, I need someone to rent a room right now. Does anyone need a room? I know of a space next to me that they need a tenant. Does anyone, want to rent right now? And kind of, for me, that was the most important part, to create the community that you are most open with in order to be able to rely on a lot of these people. And I think that's why that was the big part, was that community that I needed.
I mean, I can't imagine leaving, because I was not in an abusive relationship at all. But I left my husband, and I left with just my car and my clothes. I didn't want to disrupt the rest of the house. I didn't, I had to leave my dogs because I was sofa surfing with people on people's sofas. And when I got my first apartment, I had no money. I didn't have any credit. And I remember somebody loaned me a blow up mattress. And I was like taking things like I mean, from anthro, understanding the value of being able to dumpster dive and finding random pieces of furniture. But I can't imagine leaving with children and not having any, not having anything. And where do you go when you don't have any money, and let alone all the things you need. And God forbid you're in a very dangerous situation where, you are literally in hiding. It's like, to provide this space, this safe space is amazing. But how did you get from being in that class to now renting a space in an apartment and all things with toddlers in tow?
Well, same thing. I did a lot of sofa surfing. I was sharing custody with my ex. But so there were places that I could go where they were allowing me to have my daughters with me. And then I was, sofa surfing on my cousin's couch here in Long Beach for, it turned out to be probably 3 or 4 months. And I was working as a chef at one of the local golf courses because I had to take off. I had some custody court, child support court, family court, some court appearance I had to make at least once a month. So I really needed something that was flexible. But with that money that I could build up, I was able to save up to find a space this studio apartment that I'm still in, actually. And that's how I got that. But I mean, I had to rely on my ex coming through. I had to rely on my bosses being okay with, being flexible with me, because I couldn't commit to full-time work. I couldn't do a lot of different things. And because I didn't have a car, I couldn't go from site to site. If they needed someone over at the different golf course, I would have to take the bus over there.
Yeah.
So I just was really honest and said, look, I don't have a car. I have kids. So sometimes when I'm dealing with them, they are my priority, but whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. So I worked out, there's a barbecue pit out on the golf course that I worked at for a while. And then I did catering in the kitchen, and a little bit of bartending, just try to jump into as many different areas as I could, so that they could utilize me in different places, because even though I wasn't full time.
Yeah.
So they could find a little space for me. Oh, by the way, this place needs a chef for a couple of weeks. Can you go over there? Sure. No problem. So I think that's just learning that flexibility, is what helped. And, just kind of learning all the different nuances of the jobs in order to kind of see how the whole thing ticks was really part of what I was looking at too. So then I decided in 2020 to start this nonprofit, because I basically had been doing the same thing for years. It felt like, I just had friends within this survivor community that I talked to all the time. And we'd always said, like, God, wouldn't it be great if we had just someplace to go that wasn't just like hiding in a house? Or I would run into a lot of my friends at the welfare office, but that's not necessarily what it's called anymore. Again, this name just dropped right out of my head. But I ran into people there who they were living in shelters and they had to go somewhere. So they would go to that office and kind of just hang out for a while. So that's how I kept in touch with a lot of these women. And I noticed that I had a friend, she's still my friend, but she mentioned that she knows she's in an abusive relationship, but she doesn't know what to do. Like, what's the next step? How do I get out? What's the prep work around this?
Yeah.
And no one could really tell her that. So that stuck with me for a while. Like, why can't someone say, make sure what do you do? Is the goal to move out? Is the goal to like address his abuse? Is the goal to, what do you want to do? And she's like, no, I just want to get out of this relationship. But she had kids with this man, and she just was like, I just feel so tied to him that I can't even fathom like getting out. So what steps do you think I should take? And that's when I started kind of creating this like mental checklist. Like, okay, maybe you got to get do you know where all your papers are? Are the bank accounts in your name? What is the lease in your name? Is the car what's in your name? What's in both of your names?
Oh, all that.
Yeah. Going through that whole list of like, okay, so slowly kind of extricate yourself, in different ways. Because I have found that a lot of the cases, a lot of my friends weren't necessarily in life or death situations, but they were not great. So we had a little bit of time almost to pull ourselves out. And that was the most effective, because when people leave, sometimes, you walk out that door with just your car and your clothes, you feel like that option, you go back because there's such a stark difference between sofa surfing and your own house, your own kids, your own atmosphere. And I think that that's also part of it, is that it just feels so stark because you're not prepared for anything.
Yeah.
So just creating that prep work for me was I thought that would make more of a difference than just leaving or packing up and just getting out, because the support runs out sometimes. The help, I'll overstay your welcome regardless of your circumstances. That things change. So I wanted to have this space regardless of any of that. You know, I wanted to have a space where people could just come together, is where that came from.
Did the nonprofit come before the store?
Yes. But I had a booth. I just opened a booth at a vintage mall like the March before the pandemic.
Wow.
So
you just started collecting things and like, and you're like the reinventor. Keep reinventing.
Yeah, I just had stuff and I really had wanted to have a booth, so I started there. I always recommend that if people who do want to get into the retail business, doing something along the lines of a, vintage mall or vintage, collective.
What did you start with?
What's up?
What did you start with? Apparel, or is it like household stuff, or
yes, all of it.
I just kind of a mix right now.
Yeah, I always had that mix. And I wanted to stand out from all the other booths by what I offered, but also in how I presented my items. So I really had that anthro look in my head, even as I was doing this booth too. But I just like that you didn't have to be there all the time, and you could kind of get an idea what made sense with how you set it up.
Yeah.
What made sense to get people to buy in your booth. And it can be, I had a rack that was really low and it had all these really nice denim jackets on it. And I'm like, what is going on that no one's buying? No one's shopping from these. And I just raised the rack to eye level.
It's amazing.
And I push it and walk away. Bam, people are shopping on the rack right away.
Yeah, it's amazing. Eye level is amazing.
yeah, exactly. But I couldn't, that's how I learned a bunch of different just like sales techniques.
Yeah.
Because you redo your booth, you pull everything out, you switch up something, you add something, you take something away. And that was just my starter store. So I was doing that while I established my nonprofit. And my oldest daughter is disabled. She has autism and she's nonverbal. So I had to spend a lot of time with her. And then my youngest daughter, Violet, I had them with me. So I actually ended up working through IHSS, which is in-home supportive services. So because my daughter needs 24-hour care, I also work as an in-home caregiver.
Well, so you're doing double duty and a mom.
Yeah. Yeah. But that also supports me. I have that there that gives me I just know that my bills are paid, that my rent is paid, that my car is paid for. And then because I went from, I think I earned like $900 a month at one point. And that was when I was like really raking in the money because I had all these part-time jobs. Yeah. Oh, and I sold on Poshmark too for a while. I'm still on Poshmark.
Wow.
So
but I think a lot of women, when you have to take care of small children and you have to take care of yourself, it's amazing what you're able to do. The hustle is real. And do I think of my mom when she was divorced and, she was a single mom. And she, what the things she had to do and the extra jobs she had to do, and everything was on a budget. And like we didn't understand why we couldn't have what all the other kids had in Manhattan. Like we were growing up in Manhattan Beach, and it's like it wasn't anything like it is now, Manhattan Beach, but it was still, keeping up with the Joneses. And my mom, I remember she didn't have a job when she was married. She went from being a model into being a wife, and then my dad cheated on her and left her, and then now all of a sudden she's got to find a job, and like she did a lot of jobs. And it's like, it sounds like, also you have had to do the hustle to provide and, get some stability in your life from what you went through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, looking back, I realized how exhausted I was all the time. I mean, I'm still tired a lot, but I just had to put my head down and work. It was tough. It was definitely tough. And I mean, I appreciate so much the amount of work that my daughters are seeing me do that, and, and what they know that they can ask for something. And then we can talk about, well, maybe we can't do this now. Should we wait later? That kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that my daughters pick up on that too.
They will.
Yeah.
So where are you in Long Beach? Because when I left my husband, when I finally was able to get an apartment, I got a tiny little studio on Laverne that was off of Belmont Shore. And I will tell you, that was hands down the best experience I've ever had in my life. Like, it was so, I could park my car and walk. I love Long Beach. I have such a love feeling for Long Beach. I even before we decided to move up here to Oregon, it was like, well, do we look in Long Beach and stay in California? And like, I adore. So where are you in Long Beach?
Downtown Long Beach.
So so you're down like by the aquarium and
yeah. So I'm at 8th and Chestnut, and I'm like two blocks away from Pine Avenue.
So has that come, because back in the day, Z Gallery had a store that it used to be a Masonic temple, I think, and it was 3 floors. And when I was at Z, we would go, that was one of the stores that we would stop and re-merchandise. And it was not really booming them, but it was doing okay. But it seems like a lot of downtown cleared out, and it seems like it's having this resurgence, which I love seeing, because there's some amazing vintage shops in Long Beach, but to see the resurgence of downtown and more vintage.
Yeah.
And so what's the timeline from when you moved in, and how is the downtown, how is it doing now?
First of all, I hope I'm answering your questions in a way that makes sense. I have ADHD, so I kind of go off on tangents.
I'm obviously able to follow you. Okay. I do too.
Okay. I had my booth in downtown Long Beach, so I was, it's 2 blocks away from me now, where the booth was. And you walk around, there are a lot of empty retail spaces here in downtown Long Beach. And so I was trying to just find a space that would let me in, and as a thriftaholic, I started amassing storage units, which those can sink your boat really fast if you're not careful. So I knew I wanted to have a large space just to get rid of it, and I knew the vision. I knew what I wanted it to look like. I knew that I wanted to have windows so I could hang lights and people could look in, and it would be really fun to peek in the window. So gone to a couple of different places downtown. I spoke with Downtown Long Beach Associates, and everyone was like, we'll see what we can do. We can maybe, yeah, I guess so. And then I found this spot. It's a former Acres of Books location, and it had been empty. I don't remember it being occupied ever after Acres of Books was taken down. So I figured out that was a privately owned space, and that we have Studio 111 here in downtown Long Beach, and they are a big part of the community, the arts community down here, and they had the keys to the space. They weren't the owners, but they had the keys to the space. So I said, okay, I'm going to figure out who I talked to at Studio 111 in order to get keys to the space, because I said, let me just do it. You'll be sold. I know you'll be sold by the vision when I get it set up for you. So I found the person at Studio 111 and proposed just a December pop-up, really, because I was like, I have all this stuff. I really want to set it up. It's just really fun vintage stuff. I curated all myself. And Sinead Pine at Studio 111 was like, that seems great. Let's do it. And within 10 days, I had the keys to this space. Wow. It's 3,000 square feet. And I went, okay, I'm going to just do this. And that's how I ended up in this space. We have one electrical outlet for the entire.
Oh my God. Wow.
Spot. I have no heat, no running water.
Wow.
No AC, nothing. So it's
really, it's because doesn't it have like poured concrete floors and like floor to ceiling windows? It looks like it almost, when you sent me pictures, it almost looks like a new build. So that's an old build
it's a new build. The Acres of Books, the building itself was raised, and just the marquee is left. And there's also a plaque there that says this used to be Acres of Books.
Wow.
But I think it had been intended to be a food court or something along those lines. And then COVID hit right as they wanted to start opening it, and boom, they just didn't do anything with it.
Wow. So now you've got 3,000 square feet.
Yes. And it was just going to be through December.
And obviously it's past December.
Yeah. I had so much fun doing this, and I had so much fun styling everything. And oddly enough, the owners were kind of astounded at how well I was doing. I mean, not necessarily in like sales, but I was doing pretty good in sales. But I mean, people felt like it's a place that they could come, walk around, talk to people, and just feel like a part of the community. And which is totally my goal. Anyway, I had these big fluffy sofas that people can sit down on. I mean, they're for sale too, and then I hosted events, as many events as I could find that people wanted to come in and do. I said, it's free. Just come in, bring your followers. And if there's wine, perfect, because then they'll shop more.
Yeah.
And that made it a hub really fast.
Well, now it's a community.
Yeah. People come in just to say hi. I have all these dogs that come and say hi to me because I fed them treats one time and they all remember me. The building itself is underneath a very large complex. And people from there come down all the time to see if I have anything new for their apartment, or if they, just to say hi, say, I want to show you pictures of the sofa I bought, look. And because I had a feeling that people were going to want to buy furniture because I'm underneath all these condos and apartments, which turned out to be true. The most furniture, I was making big ticket sales with the people that lived in the building.
So when are you doing your thrifting?
Oh, I kind of fit it in when I can. My daughters are both in school. So during the day, I go into some place. I give myself an hour. I don't always keep that timeline, but I have my phone with me so I can kind of respond to text messages and emails. It's almost like my happy space, because the hunt is part of the therapy, honestly.
Yeah.
And I had gone out of the closet, and that's where it hit me. That's what I wanted my store to be, to fund a very specific cause.
Yeah.
And be so stand out that everyone knows out of the closet stores are the pink stores that you see. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's how I knew that's the inspiration behind having the vintage store, but a higher level vintage store than a thrift store. So that's where I kind of got that from thrifting, because I was like, I want to figure out, I have all this nice stuff, but I want to figure out a way to make it work.
Do you sell any new product in there, or is it all vintage?
I do some new product, but I don't buy it from the stores. I buy it all from the thrift stores, and I get some stuff donated to me that I can utilize. But I don't have anything new there.
When did the Women's Center, and when did you start to put that into action? Did you wait till the store was kind of settled, or did you put that into action right away?
So we are moving at the end of May. I'm not sure where, but wherever we go, I want to ensure that it has that safe space, because I don't have it right now. I just do it where I can. People come to my house, I go to theirs, I talk to them on the phone, that kind of stuff with my clients. But the space itself is pretty amazing, but I can't really utilize it for my second part of this vision, which is the safe room and the storage lockers and the decompression space that I would have. So now but I filled it 3,000 square feet with, thrifting stuff and stuff for my storage, and just curating specifically what I love, rather than what's trendy or what's cool, or, that's the fun, is looking at the label and telling by the font, it's probably an older brand, and then looking at what it's made of and kind of figuring out the year it was created, and then going from there. So,
is it apparel, furniture,
anything. I have baskets, I have furniture, lots of art. I have a lot of pitchers. I love the shape of pitchers. So I have a lot of those for sale, and decanters. I like the big ones, that have like the big base underneath. If you see those with the the wide neck. Yeah, yeah, like definitely. I kind of go for this like stereotypical college professor type deal with like the corduroy jackets and patches on there, and J.R. Ewing is someone I think about when I'm shopping too. Like, oh, this would be so fun in his wardrobe, and
hilarious.
Yeah. But like the like après ski kind of look that people would have in the 70s. The 70s were a fun era to like look at. I don't necessarily, I mean, like visually, people just wore the craziest stuff. Even the conservative people wore crazy stuff. So watching it and being like, wow, they wore those big collars with the, like that come down to like here on them, and like these wild patterns. And then the tie would be a different pattern too. And then their jacket, like, it's just fantastic to me, the different patterns and the colors and stuff.
Well, it very much, it lends itself to vintage shopping, because it's the great thing is because all the patterns, everyone kind of like cross all these different patterns together that did not make sense, but yet when you lay it out in a vintage shop, it very much makes sense like that. Like about shopping and dressing. How, with your nonprofit, what goes back to, for your sales, what goes back to the nonprofit, and how does a nonprofit work right now? If you don't have the safe space, how do people find you? Like,
so I've had almost all word of mouth at this point. People have found me, and just through recommendations, people have called me and said, or, texted me, said, I have a friend, will you talk to her? And that's how I've been kind of working with my clients for the most part, since I started in 2020. And when I get on the phone with them, the first thing I say is, I was in an abusive relationship. I know what you're going through, before they start talking, because that automatically allows them to open up to me. And then sometimes I'll be on the phone with them for an hour, sometimes a couple times a week. But that's part of the service, is that I pick up the phone when they call, so they don't feel alone. And they will ask the questions that they don't necessarily ask other people. Like, what should I do? Do you think I should worry about, if my kids are going to be safe? How can I do this without feeling so much shame? Where's the best place for me to go? Because I don't want to go to a shelter. These sort of questions are asked very often. But the way domestic violence is sort of treated is that we're at everyone's mercy if we want to leave. It just doesn't feel comfortable to talk to people that you know about what you're going through. So as almost an anonymous person, I've found that that's where I've gotten a lot of people to open up to me. And that way I can give them, make sure, if you talk to a lawyer, ask them if they can do this for you. I know we have the Legal Aid Foundation here in Long Beach. Do you have something equivalent there? Because I've done this, these are people all around the country that I've spoken with. And then I am just now recruiting people to start doing trauma, to run trauma support groups. But again, I hadn't been able to really initiate a lot of these programs in my store because I wasn't sure how long I was going to stay.
Yeah.
But I do make sure that everyone knows what the nonprofit is for and what we're doing. And that right now, a lot of my the sales go towards staffing, as well as, and rent for the space. We get charged a very, very small amount. And then I have a lot, just not necessarily just sitting in the bank, but so I'm able to afford the next place that I'm looking, the next place that we go, and have like a little bit of a stash, quote unquote. So I'm able to focus more on the program and people coming in. and creating that safe space.
When is you said you're moving in May?
Yes, but I don't know where. So,
what is the plan? What is your short-term plan?
Short-term plan, we do a sale every Wednesday, 50% off the store. And then, we bring, and then, 25% off on Saturdays. So people will shop the Saturday sale knowing that they might not get it on Wednesday. And, just kind of clearing out as much as we can. Yeah, that's been the goal in terms of like just being able to get rid of, like not get rid, but like get out from under so much stuff. But I also have had, well, every day I have someone who comes in and starts looking around and then sees the information, the poster about the nonprofit, and they will come to me and say, you know, I just got out of my abusive relationship, or my mom did, or whomever, you know, so people share with me right away. I don't think I've ever done public speaking or talked about my nonprofit or had, or said, you know, how can I help? I have this nonprofit. We specifically deal with DV people, or people, you know, who are experiencing deep domestic violence. I have every day people come up to me saying, oh, I did this, or, you know, there's someone I want you to talk to, or like, I wish you were around when I got out of my abusive relationship. So, I interact with lots of people every day, but I always interact with people who are struggling with the shame of DV, the anxiety that it creates. And there are some resources that I have available to me that they may not know about. So I'm always offering recommendations like, oh, do you know that you can get free therapy through the Department of Health? You just have to go in and register. Or do you know that you are able to get, you know, if you're going through the court process, sometimes your fees can be waived. Just fill out the you know, your what is it called? Like your income form, and they can waive your fees for you. Just kind of giving out that information constantly has been the way I've been able to be of service to the people that I'm working with.
With moving out in May, and you're now starting to clear things through sales and stuff, do you still have your, like, if you don't go right into a space, do you still have your storage units? And is that the plan, is to put it all back in and then find a place?
I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, I'm willing to do that, you know. But again, my hope, we have connected with so many people in downtown Long Beach who say, you know what, I think I might have a space for you. You know what, I'm going to talk to my friend if we're going to do this. So, you know, I should be panicked. I know my employees are, but I'm like, it's going to happen. It'll be great. I mean, inside I'm freaking out, but I do know that, yeah, I just put it out in the universe. And I do know that no matter what, I want to reach out to people in, you know, I want to be a support for people who are in bad relationships. So I'm always reaching out, doing outreach, doing speaking. I'm always trying to seek out, I guess, people I can help. But once you recognize it, you can see it through social media, through Facebook. People I don't really know that well, I've kind of said, hey, is there something going on? You know, I don't know. Let me know what's going on with your relationship. Seems like things are a little crazy. And I've, you know, a couple of like high school friends, you know, I'm 52 now. So a lot of high school friends that I'm still in touch with, I've been able to talk to them and say, yeah, I did it too. And it's crazy. And we have conversations like about what's going on with their relationship that they don't want to have with other people. So for me, that's I mean, that's not necessarily considered programming, but that's how I'm able to maintain my my nonprofit help, is just make sure that people understand that I'm here to talk to. I think I understand.
It's a shame. It's something that I think a lot of people feel shame about. So it's nice they have you, hopefully with your next space, a safe place to, I love the community that you've created. I love that you are helping people with not only your retail space, but also in the sense of renew, reuse, recycle. I love that you are, creating this or have created this amazing space with products that aren't coming from China and this and like you're giving new. I interviewed the marketing guy for a vintage store there in Palm Springs called Revival, and they are amazing, and they're funded and run by a medical center that is for people with low income or women of color and all the things like gay, lesbian, trans, like, and it was such an incredible interview to hear, much like yourself, about how it is a very unselfish way to give back. So thank you very much.
I guess so. It feels selfish because I love what I do. So
It is very unselfish that you, like, anybody that does this and helps other people through, their own experience. It's very, that's correct, right? Unselfish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell everyone where they can find you, either on Instagram or, if somebody is needing help and feels like they need someone to talk to that has experienced domestic violence, tell everyone where they can find you.
Okay, so I am on Instagram under Project WomanGood, as well as Facebook, Project WomanGood. The store is called the Mom Up Shop. Again, that's on Instagram and Facebook, just the Mom Up Shop. And we are at 240 Long Beach Boulevard here in Long Beach, and people can stop by and seek me out if they want to. And then I'm always available through instant message, through, any way people want to reach out. I'm happy to just check in and tell them what they're feeling is not crazy. What they're doing is really hard, and I can be there for them.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad. I'm so sad I wasn't able to make it out to your store when I was back in California.
Well, you'll be at, the 2.0 store. You'll be there.
When I come back to California, for sure, we'll be reaching out to you to come see the store. Thank you so much.